Welcome to Triangle BNI. Today's show is brought to you by Oak City Tech. Whenever you have a problem getting your message out to your current and future clients, you need professionals like Drago and his team at Oak City Tech to navigate the loud and crowded uh, universe on social media and digital marketing. So go to oakcitytech.com, tell them what you're looking for. I know they'll be able to help you. Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Manning. Each week on Triangle BNI, we bring you a local small business success story. Each week, if you're not familiar with BNI, it is Business Networking International, the world's largest networking organization. Our little slice of heaven here in the Triangle is Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill each week, 31 chapters, about 520 members get together, and our goal is to help each other get referrals and grow their business. So each week we bring you a local small business success story, but because I was on vacation all last week, I kind of forgot to book a guest. So love being honest with people because, hey, we all make mistakes. So it's story time this week. Hope you are settled in and hope you enjoy the beach because we were at the beach last week. So we have some beach stories and want to talk about some of the guests we've had before, give you some updates on some of the things they're doing. Because that's what we want to bring you each week are good stories. I know you like them because people keep tuning in, hear the stories about kind of how people got there and what their life is like, and I enjoy the stories as well. I tell people in BNI all the time, just if anybody asks you what you do, just tell a story. And same thing in business anywhere, whether you're in BNI or not. If somebody says, "Hey, so what do you do?" Just say, "Mike, let me tell you about a client I helped last week." We love stories. That's how we explain our day. If you are late to work or late somewhere because there was a tanker truck that turned over on I-40 and blocked all 4 or 5 lanes the way you were headed for an hour and a half, you're going to tell that story and you're going to use details like that instead of saying, yeah, there was traffic. You know, we tell stories. So when people say, how's our week? How's our weekend? It's worth telling. We tell a story. So we were in Destin, Florida. We had to go. I had to go. My wife wanted to go, and I do too. I enjoy it very much. So if you have young kids, here's some parental advice. When they start dating, if they can meet and marry someone whose family owns a condo at Destin or a resort area, please have them date that person just a little bit longer to see if it could work out. Our niece married into a family that owns a condo at Destin, Florida, in the Panhandle, and is right on the Gulf, and it's beautiful there. And we get invited there at least once a year, and we love going down there. It's a 12-hour drive, so it's a haul. But the good news is Buc-ee's, the great convenience store out of Texas, if you want to call it that, opened up one of their stores in Florence, South Carolina, along I-95. And so we got to stop there, but it's a healthy drive, but it's worth it when you get there because you can relax. I'm a big fan of the waves hitting the shore and just, just sit and listen. Don't even need to talk to anybody. My wife and I enjoy going to the beach very much, but it took me a long time to figure out why we each enjoyed it so much. Don't know how your relationships go with your significant others or spouses on going to the beach, but my wife loves being on the beach, and I love being at the beach. It was my wife Becky and I, and her sister, and her husband, and her husband's sister. So there are 5 of us, and the 3 girls. I bet they got 6 hours a day on the beach, and that's a lot for me. I can lay out there for about an hour and a half, enjoy going in the water, love the water. But, laying on the beach, I can only read so much. I can only sit in a chair so long. So not quite for me. I'll go back upstairs, hang out, maybe catch a nap, read up on some things, and then go back down there later. But we had a long time. So while I was enjoying myself doing nothing, well, we ate good, had a drink or two, laughed a lot, played some card games. And I forget the card game we played, but it involved showing colors. And for someone who's colorblind like me, I'll try to get you the name of the card game next time. I should ask that. But it involved colors, and so you had to throw cards down if somebody had the same color hat or same color shoes. I forget the name of it, but some people were dressed. or they're different people, a male, a female, an animal, or something like that, and you had to put down matching cards. So you may put down a card for a female, but I've got an animal card, but they both had red hats. I just laid out the card and say hat, if you can tell red. And so blue, gray, green, I'm done. Pink and purple, if it's not blatant, I'm done. And so a lot of times I'd throw down a card before somebody and I'd have to ask, does it match? And so my wife won. The other 4, you have to win 3 games. And so my wife won, and the other 4 of us each won 2 games. So I told my wife that I either finished tied for second or tied for last, depending on how you counted that. I like to think I finished tied for second, not tied for last. But so if you ever run across a card game where colors are needed and you're colorblind, just take a pass, be the scorekeeper or something like that. But we had fun kind of doing nothing. Kinda doing nothing, so that was a lot of fun, and we got back Friday night and then tried to figure out what day it was, what time it was on Saturday and Sunday, trying to get back in the routine of things, but, it was a lot of fun. So today I was gonna mention a couple folks that have been on the show before, kinda give you an update on things, and if anybody wants to chime in and send a note, please do.
Absolutely. At
Yep.
919-518-9773.
Yep, so if you have a favorite beach story, we'd love to hear about it. So here's a good parent move that we like doing, but it was a little out of the way. So if you're familiar with Destin, it's in the Panhandle. Closest big city to it is Pensacola, and we were there from 2 Thursdays ago till this past Thursday. And on Monday, last Monday, while we were in Destin, my wife called our youngest son, Cameron. He and our daughter-in-law live in Lakeland, Florida, which is between Orlando and Tampa and not really near Destin. So Becky said, "Hey, let's leave a little bit early on Thursday and go to Destin and spend the day with Cameron and Jen and then head back home Friday." So I'm like, "All right." So as good parents do, instead of driving 12 hours back home, we drove 6 hours the other way to spend time with our son and daughter-in-law, which we enjoyed very much. Sometimes you just need a hug from your kids, no matter what their age is. And then we drove 10.5 hours back home, so it added a little bit of time, but it was worth it. It was a lot of fun, and just again, you're in the car, so, either if I'm driving, my wife's on her phone, and that just stuff that happened over the weekend when we were driving back was Queen Elizabeth. It's interesting on that world and the protocol and everything that goes into it, and I learned a few things about what's supposed to happen and who does what, but so you find funny things, Instagram post, play a song or something like that. But, it's good. It's good. Glad to be back. Always love Mondays, but I do miss the beach.
Now, tell us, I mean, it's in this time, you traveled 12 hours.
Yes.
What did you see as far as gas prices?
We saw what did we hit? 331 at Buc-ee's in Florence, and then we filled up again on the other side of Jacksonville and paid like 345. Florida was higher.
So it's about, but yeah, but I
Yeah,
mean,
but
in
Florida
general,
was 10, 15 cents higher than South Carolina and Georgia were. And then coming back from Lakeland, we hit the Buc-ee's in Daytona at 331 and then hit the Buc-ee's in Florence going back on Friday for 329. So
so
it's
it went down.
a couple cents, yeah.
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 Oh,
So I was
interesting.
pleased with it. And there were a ton of cars on the road. Orlando folks, if I can give you any advice, do not drive through Orlando on I-4. If you don't have to, don't ever do it. Because we went through at 11 a.m. on a Friday, and it was still but it was still, I guess, Disney season because you have to go by the Disney exits. But if you have a chance to not drive through Orlando, either pick 6 a.m. or 10 p.m., basically before the sun comes up, or after it's gone down, do that because Orlando is never fun. There's just not enough lanes there. It's a major artery across the state of Florida, other than I-10 that's up in the Panhandle. I-4 is in the middle of the state, goes from Daytona through Orlando to Tampa, and it's just brutal traffic. And then you throw Disney on there and Universal exits, and you get summertime, and no fun. So
Yep.
we didn't miss that. We used to live in Daytona Beach, but we did not miss that. So anyways, one of the, guests we've had on the show, you may remember Wes Harper. He owns Lightwire Inc., a computer company, a telecommunications company, but he is our resident, Naked and Afraid contestant from the Triangle. And Wes has been on the show a couple times promoting being on the show. And if you've watched the show at all, you understand what they live through in the heat. Wes has been on a show in South America. He's been on a show in Africa, and I think now he's been on 12 total episodes because the one that just showed the other night was Naked and Afraid Frozen. They sent them to Montana for the winter. Well, they were clothed, but I think it's about all they had. So I missed it, but I'm going to go back and watch it. But and Wes told the story that he grew up outdoors. That's what his family did. They went camping. They never got a hotel room. They pitched tents, a little trailer, whatever they needed to do. So he enjoyed that. And one day, he and his wife were watching the show long before he got on, and he was complaining about why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? And she said, you know what? Put your money where your mouth is and apply for the show. And he kind of hemmed and hawed. Well, she applied for him. And about a year later, he got accepted. And the first thing he did once he got accepted was he started walking around the neighborhood barefoot because he knew he had to make his feet very tough. Because when you go to the uh, South America and Africa, there's no grass and nothing's cold, nothing's cool on the feet because you're there in the summertime. Heat a day, no shoes, no socks, no nothing. So he knew he had to toughen up his feet. And you could take one thing with you, a rope, a knife, you get one thing. So he's, spent some time figuring out what that would be. And then just generally living outside, walking around as much as he could without a shirt on and shorts so his body can get used to the heat, and then doing some research on those areas to figure out what you can eat and what you can't eat and what you can cook to eat. So just all the snakes and the mosquito or the bugs.
It
And
was interesting.
it was, yeah, yeah. So anyways, he's on Naked and Afraid Frozen, and that's Discovery Channel. If you missed it the other day, if it's on one of your streaming services, you probably ought to check that out. Good dude, and loves doing that. And he's 50 and he's doing that. And his son was on one. What are we in September? His son was
I
on
don't
one from
remember.
the
Yeah.
summertime. And so I'm going to have him on here again now that he's back to talk about both of them. But I think the only thing he told me about with his son being on the show was completely different than he thought it would be. So, um, but that was good to catch. I caught up with him, I don't know, a couple weeks ago or so, just on a quick email on how he was doing. I don't know. Nothing about that interests me. Nothing. I know there's a show, Survivor, and then what was the one, the race, the tandem is two people, uh,
The
something
great
race.
the great race?
Yeah, something like that, where they would, get on a plane and go do no, none of that. Well, of course, we didn't travel growing up. My dad was a leave Monday morning salesman, come home Friday night, so we just didn't go anywhere that much. But none of that interests me. So for those of you that do, I tip my hat and salute you on that because nothing happening here with that. Kind of like camping. I'll do a tent. Got a friend of mine, Chip, who's been on the show before. He loves camping, but his wife won't sleep on the ground. So she does not go tent camping with him. Years ago, I could have. Not so much now with my back. As we're laughing before we came on here. I've just for years. Well, since we lived in Daytona Beach, so I think it's happened about 2003, maybe. My back I did something. I know it was boarding up my house and my neighbor's house for a series of 3 hurricanes are getting ready to come through. And that's when everything started. So my new normal, now I feel good today. My new normal is 9, but an old school number, it would have been a 4 because there's no the pain's gone, but no flexibility. So, but for those of you that like camping, hey, kudos to you on that. Another character on the show this would gone back. So this is show number 175. So Charles Calloway, he was on episode 83 back in March of 2020. I cannot believe how long we've been on the air, Amnon.
Yeah.
This is great. He and I were talking. So when I do research, on the guests coming on, I wanna find cool stuff to talk about because I need to be intrigued and entertained because, that's just the way I am. It's the goofy stuff that intrigues me. And so I saw that Charles and I had a couple of connections through things, and one of them was the city of Cleveland, Ohio. And I was born there. And so I was asking Charles about it. He goes, "Yeah, I was born there too." And we talked about I think I'm about 5 years older than him. And we got talking about things. I told him I was born at the Salvation Army Home for Unwed Mothers because my dad bragged to his friends for years that he got me in and out of the hospital for under $50. That was one of the great stories he would tell. And Charles was laughing about that. And I got a call from him like 2 weeks later. And he said, I was born in that same hospital. So, I mean, you just never know. We talk about that in BNI all the time. You just never know the connections we have with people. So every time Charles and I are on a Zoom call, I always bring that up. That we were brothers from the same city, different parents, and about 5 years apart, but we have a lot of fun with that. A couple other things with some folks on that there's one that hasn't been on the show yet that I'm going to have on. His name is Carlton White. He is a business broker in the Bull City Durham chapter. And if you're a fan of the movie Bull Durham, there's a great scene on the mound when Nuke LaLoosh was on the mound. Kevin Costner was the catcher. He walks out to the mound. He goes, "Hit the mascot." And Nuke goes, "Why?" And he goes, "Just hit the mascot." Because he wanted to show the batter in the box, like, I got no idea where it's going, really. Well, Carlton was the mascot. He actually played the mascot in the movie. So one day we're going to get him on and have him on there and tell stories about that. But he's 6'6", and he was in the mascot. He was in the mascot costume. I think he was maybe in 2 scenes, but he will forever be known as the mascot that got hit by the ball in Bull Durham, which was a hilarious scene. But those are the type of people in BNI. One of our second guest, third guest, fourth guest, Jed Gronwald. He is a realtor with Hunter Rowe, and he and his wife did a pilot for HGTV about flipping houses. And it was a very interesting conversation because another person in BNI in a separate chapter, but now, in a separate chapter, Jonathan Brothers, who owns a construction company, was in in the pilot as well. So that, a couple chapters collaborating together, and HGTV did not pick up. Oh, very nice. There's Jed. Yeah, look at that. Oh, no beard I had. Jed has great hair. Yeah. But anyways, he told the story. He and his wife um, did the pilot. It didn't go for whatever reason, and he said they're not really told the full reason why. But I mean, they got to shoot a pilot for HGTV, so I thought that was pretty cool. And Marcella Stewart, everybody's favorite Mary Kay cosmetic expert. I think I talked to Marcella, probably swapped emails, I don't know, 4 months ago or so. Somebody wanted to meet somebody who does Mary Kay was wanting to join a BNI chapter in another region or another area. And so I put her in touch with Marcella. I said, you're not gonna learn from anybody better on how to grow your business. And I think I follow Marcella on Facebook, and I think she's on about her 5th pink Cadillac now. So it's legit. I mean, she is a hustler, and she helps people, she connects people, she finds out what they want. There's Marcella, one of the great characters on the show, heck of a storyteller, but yeah, she's on her I think it's her 5th pink Cadillac. So I do like telling those stories because those are the types of people in BNI, they're involved in the community, they're collaborative, and we have fun together. If your family ever owned anything growing up, we had Carol Commandi on, and Carol is a U.S. health advisor. And she grew up in New Jersey, and her parents owned a bowling alley. And one of the things we laughed about is all the friends you can make when your high school friends find out your parents own a bowling alley. Like, "Hey, can we go bowl?" "Sure." "Can we bowl for free this time?" "No, you can't. You have to pay just like last time." And so Carol and I had a good time talking about that because when I moved back to Raleigh in 2009, I ran the, AMF Bowling Center in Durham, and I had bowled before in some leagues, but never been involved in bowling in a facility or knowing the industry much, and those bowlers are funny. The old guys there's Carol, she's with US Health Advisors, we laughed about that, and these old guys would come in. I think they had a Wednesday morning league. No, it was a Tuesday or Thursday league, that's what it was, but I think it was Thursday. I know it wasn't Tuesday, I think it was Thursday, and Duke University had their PE class, their bowling PE class at our facility because they didn't have any lanes or they just had a couple lanes on campus. So they'd rent out 8 to 10 lanes each semester, and they'd have a bowling class there. And so these old guys were sitting down there one day, there's probably 15 of them, and they're just shooting the breeze, and it took me a while to figure out who the liars were and who the truth tellers were, but it's funny you look at people and then you learn about them later and you have no idea that they have money or no idea what their background was. But there are a couple of guys that just drove just dirt poor cars and you'd never know. And they're retired IBMers and GE used to have a big plant in Durham but wonderful guys, great storytellers, but half of them were lying and they all knew that. And so one day, I think this was the first or second day of class that I noticed it, and I think the class was like 10:30 to 11:45. And so the students from Duke start, coming in. The teacher was there, so we knew, they're with her. And in walks this beautiful 6'2" tall female. So I figured she was either a basketball player or volleyball player because I've been around enough of those to know the build. And she walked in, and all 15 of those guys, their heads just started doing this as she walked by them. They watched her walk all the way down. They were on like lane 8, 17, and 18, and the the PE classes were on lanes, what, 3 through 8, something like that. And so they all watched her, and I could not get down to their lanes quick enough just to tell them, "Boys, there's nothing you have she wants." Because you're all 70 or better. I don't care how much money you got, but she's not talking to you, so quit looking at her. And of course, they just fell out of their chairs laughing. So every Thursday when they would come in, they'd start looking at them like, boys, boys, eyes on the lane here. But yeah, so those guys thought they had game, and they're just so much fun. I love the bowlers. A lot of the folks that bowl at the Durham facility are family because they've grown up watching their kids and others' kids grow up. Just wonderful people there. Love doing that. But it would have been fun, I think, to have your parents own a bowling alley. But I think it'd be a royal pain in the butt for all those friends, right? Who, oh, Mike, yeah, boy, I've been meaning to catch up with you. Hey, you know what? No, dude, you didn't like me before you knew my parents had a bowling alley. We're not about to talk now. So
Well,
we,
makes you popular,
oh,
though.
it does. And now it's probably a great pickup line if you need, like, hey, want to go bowling? Walk in there, free drink, free food, whatever. But yeah, the friends, once they find out, I guess it's like family members when we hear stories about somebody winning the lotto. And all of a sudden, "Hey,
Yeah.
Mike, remember me? I'm your 3rd cousin. Yeah, I've been thinking about you a lot lately, and how you doing?" Like, "I'm doing fine. Thanks for asking." Click. So we laugh about that, and I'm sure that happens all the time.
Yeah.
I enjoy as everybody knows if you watch a show, one of my favorite questions to ask is, how did you meet your spouse? And do you both tell the story the same way? Because I always like to hear if they tell the story the same way. And it's usually the guys will go, yeah, I kind of think so. And the wives are like, no, we don't tell the story the same way. Because as I've said before, we guys tell the story better with more details about how beautiful our wives were the first time we saw them. And one of the better stories was Becky Bennett. Becky was on show number 112 back in February in 2021. She owns a company called The Design Corner. She can put a logo on anything, you name it, keychains, a mug, t-shirts, parkas. If you need something, go to The Design Corner. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So Becky is a lifelong Apex resident. She was born there. She was raised there. She still lives there. She actually lives in the house now that she was raised in, which is a cool story. I love small town like that. So one day she's walking to I forget where she was walking. I think it was school, but can't quite remember. And her now husband, Bill, was driving the other way in a truck, had never seen Becky before. Becky had never seen Bill. And Bill was driving by, got a look at Becky, drove a little bit further down the road, turned his truck around, and came back and parked in the middle of the road till she looked back over at him, which I think is a great story. And that's how that relationship started. And they're a little bit, most people are younger than me, but they're a little bit younger than me, but that's how long they've been together. There's Becky. Yeah, but she tells we love telling the story. So now when I introduce somebody to Becky via email, I will say, oh, that was during COVID because I was at home for that.
Yep.
Wow. Golly, see, I can't remember
That
when it
was
all
February 8th, 21.
yeah, yeah, I can't remember.
Go ahead.
Yeah, February 8th. I'm trying to remember when all that started. I believe was it
2020.
2020? So we were a year into that when I'd started doing the shows from home. Wow, forgot all about that. Anyway, so when I do an email for someone to meet Becky because they need help putting logos on something, I'll say, and by the way, when you do finally talk to Becky, ask her how she met Bill, or ask her about the truck in the middle of the road, is all I say. I don't even say Bill. I said, just ask Becky about the truck in the middle of the road. She loves telling the story. But again, it's stories that connect people. How we met, did we go to school together? Did our kids grow up together? Stuff like that. Couple more on here. Scott Corbin, who's a realtor, um, in one of the carry groups. He was on, what are we, September 27th,
Yep.
2021. So about a year ago, episode number 136. And Scott trained in F4s and F15 fighter jets, which is very impressive. I could not, I think I would go up in one of those, but I'm not really sure. There's Scott. It's not afraid of heights or, anything like that. I've flown in helicopters, which I love flying in helicopters. But just to be able to do that and the reflexes those folks need to have when they're engaged in something is just beyond my comprehension. It's fighter pilots and hockey goalies. And I know I'm simplifying because one is more life or death than the other, but the reflexes and the anticipation they have, but to train in those and be able to fly those at Mach 1, and all of a sudden you got to drop 8,000 feet or go, supersonic and go up 10,000 feet is very impressive. But I enjoyed those stories from Scott because, again, it's something I know nothing about. Never flown in one, was never going to, and I'm not going to. They're not going to put me in a jet for any reason. No reason to invite me anywhere. So, but I'm just amazed to learn about people who are different than I am, how they were raised, what they do, what they look like, their beliefs and stuff like that. So, because I know middle-aged white male, I get that lifestyle, but like Amnon's from another country. I ask him questions all the time about it. I love learning because it,
Yeah,
it
well,
is different. And I wish I've had a couple of nieces and nephews that had a chance to travel to Europe, and I took go stay as long as you can just to learn about other cultures. I think it's a wonderful thing.
makes you appreciate
It
when you come
does.
back here.
It really does. And then you can learn things and probably learn to be a little bit more compassionate because we don't just because we do it this way doesn't mean it's right
Yep.
or better. So I enjoy that. Patrick Griffin was on the next week. He ran for office in Wake Forest, just something he wanted to do, and I applaud him for that because he spent. I think he'd laugh that he spent $20 on his campaign because he didn't buy signs. Obviously, didn't buy any radio time or anything like that, but just wanted to do something. I thought about doing that years ago when we were in Daytona Beach running for the school board, and decided not to. But for people who run for elected office, I admire them for wanting to do that because it's not easy. And the higher up you get, it's not as easy. And there's more junk that goes with it. But locally, it's where most of the decisions are made that affect our life. So had a lot of fun with Patrick. And he and his wife, I think about that show, they had lost, I think, about a combined 165 pounds because they just had enough and they know they need to do something. We got a couple of small kids. And Patrick works his butt off in BNI, and he's a great I love to tell the story about here's how it works. They just bought a mountain house, so he's doing something right. A few weeks after that, Mark Armstrong on November 15th, he owns the Wow One Day Painting franchise, one of the 2 I think there's 3 now in the Triangle. Mark owns one of them. You may remember him from the ABC affiliate here in the Triangle. He was one of the sports guys for years. Nice fellow. His wife, May, is from the Philippines. And speaking of other countries, Amnon, you'll appreciate this.
Yeah.
In other countries, you're expected to haggle.
Yeah.
The price is not the price. That's what's listed. Whereas in the US, we go in and we pay our $3.49 or $81.72. There's no haggling because we don't do that here. I took a trip. I've been to Mexico and separate trips, obviously, Mexico and Russia. And both of those trips involved haggling, and I love that. There's Mark. The minute you know you have control of the conversation when you turn to walk away and they go, "No, no, no, hang on a sec. I said 40. I meant 30 for you," you know? I love that because you find out what they really need to make. They may list it for 40. They bought it for 8, so they'll take 18 or $22 for it. They'd love to get 40, but you gotta haggle. So Mark told the story. He and his wife, May, went into a place. I think they were I believe it was in the States, but it was in a place where you could haggle. I forget where it was. And they
Flea
walked in.
market.
Yeah, it was a flea market, so but I can't remember exactly where it was. But there's this nice, I believe it was a painting that May looked at it and liked. And Mark's like, "I can't afford that." And she goes, "Hang on." And walked over there, started haggling with the guys. And Mark had not grown up around haggling. He said he just turned and walked away. He's like, "What are you doing? You're gonna insult him." And what we learn is we insult you if we don't haggle, which most of us never knew growing up here in the States, that that's part of the deal is the haggling. And they want you to haggle because they want to sell it to you because they want to make some money. But he said he just turned and walked away, could not believe what his wife was doing. And she got what she wanted, the price she wanted. So,
I think I told her the story when my parents came here the first time when we got married, and I went with my dad to, it used to be Big Star.
Big Star.
Big Star was like a grocery store, one
Okay.
of them big grocery, like Food
Mhm.
Line. And we're checking out, and I put the milk there, and she puts it, I think it was 1.99 a gallon,
Yeah.
and my father goes, "No, no, 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 1.50."
That's right, you did. I remember that. And you turned beet
Yeah,
red,
I
right?
mean, and I said, "Dad, we don't do that here."
But the first time, because my wife and I met and got married in Austin, Texas, and her brother for years has lived down in South Padre Island, which is right on the border of Texas and Mexico. And so we went to visit him one day. This is before we had kids, so this is probably 85, maybe 84, 85. And we went down there, so we're walking through their version of the flea market, and nobody told me the rules. I didn't know you're supposed to do that, and so we walked over to buy something. Her brother JJ walked over to buy something, and same thing happened. The guy said, "Here's the price," and JJ goes, "Nah, man, I'll give you 10 for that." I forget what it was. Probably wasn't anything significant. So I had 2 thoughts. One is, "What is he doing?" And the other thought was, "I wanna stay and watch what he's doing because I was very intrigued by that. So I love that. The haggling is I don't yeah, you can't do it here because I don't think the folks at Target
No.
or Food Lion or Publix or anything would like that, nor
You
could they
can
do it.
haggle with the owner of something.
Yes,
You
yeah.
can't haggle with the
No, it's their job just to check
yeah,
it out.
right.
They have no authority there. So that was that was so funny. I enjoyed that a lot. A couple of weeks this was back in June, Mike Mullins, who's this would have been June 27th. Mike is a financial advisor for Edward Jones, and he's all of 6'7". He played offensive tackle for Virginia football team. And he has 2 brothers. They're both about 6'5", and he just told stories about the damage they did to their house, doors, interior doors that they would push the other brother through. Now there's Mike. You don't know that he's 6'7", but he's healthy. He's a healthy boy. And, you play offensive tackle in football, you're eating, and you can't keep the weight on. He said after each game in high school, they'd bring on, large pizzas onto the bus, and each lineman got a whole pizza to themselves. And so, he's big, but he told wonderful stories about that one day, one brother was on the other side of a closed door, and Mike would not acknowledge if he was the pusher or the pushee on the other side of the door. But one brother pushed the other brother through the door, and the third brother was on his hands and knees behind the door, meaning the middle brother who was pushed just fell flat through the door and then straight onto his back because there's nowhere to go but down because the other brother was behind him waiting for him to trip. And so stories like that, I just love. Uh, Melvin Green, who was on February of this year, was in the Air Force, and he flew B-52s. And one of the cool stories was Diego Garcia, which is an island, I believe, about the size of this desk that Amnon and I are sitting at. And it's a refueling station. That's all it is. There's a couple of long runways. There's Melvin State Farm. Um, there's a couple of runways. There's some bunks for the planes that land there overnight. The guys and girls that are on the plane to sleep, and then they refuel and take off somewhere in the Pacific to wherever else they're going. Because my father-in-law had flown there before, many times, being in the Air Force, and just to hear those stories about, you have a flight that long, you got 2 refuels, and you land on something that just pops up in the Indian Ocean. You spend the night, you refuel, and then you head on. It's like, "Yeah, we did that." Because to them, it's like, "Yeah, we did that because 'cause we've done it before," where the rest of us are like, "What was that like?" So, um, trying to think, what else? But anyways, those are the type of stories, that we love bringing to you each week, and we appreciate everybody that, comes along with us at 11 a.m. Eastern on Mondays, and there will be a guest tomorrow. There will be a guest the Mondays after that. So I enjoy telling stories, but I know you enjoy hearing from guests as well because we laugh a lot. So, but appreciate everybody following the show. Like I said, this is episode number 175. And because the first one, I had to print this out just to make sure because I don't ever remember. July 9th, 2018. Because one day, the beauty of BNI, I've told this story, is our Amnon and I have a mutual friend, Jim Bowdish, with Edward Jones. I moved here in 74, to Raleigh in 74, and Jim lived here, so we've known each other that long. And I was talking to him one day. This would have been, I guess, July, so this might have been like March or April. And I told Jim that I wanted to start a show like this, just to interview BNI people, just to chat and learn and laugh. I said, but I have no technical skills, but more importantly, I don't want to learn technical skills. I just want to show up and do the show and ask the questions. He goes, call Amnon. I'm like, who's Amnon? He goes, shut up and call Amnon. Here's his number. So I do what smart people tell me to do. I called Amnon, came over one day. We chatted. He said, get everything set up. What do you need? What do you want to do? And we'll talk more. There's Jim. And one of his kids finally moved out of the house. Yeah, she moved to the West
Wow.
Coast, yeah, which is funny. Our boys have been grown and gone for see, Travis will be 36 in November. Cameron just turned 32. And so it's funny when they move out of the house. Now that you look back on it, it's not much fun when they do finally move out, especially a long way. I think she moved to the West Coast. But anyways, Jim said, call Amnon. And I came over one day. We talked. He said, what do you need? What do you want to do? Come back to me with a plan. I put a plan together, showed up, and I get the easiest job because I literally walk in here and I sit down and start talking. Amnon does all the work. He pushes all the buttons. But that's what I needed to do a show like this. So if you want to do something, folks, just find somebody that'll help you. Don't listen to people say, no, you can't do it or no, you shouldn't do it. If you want to do it, find somebody that will help you do it. Because that's what Jim did for me. And I come in here every week and Amnon and I have a good time laughing and talking. And his dog Gaia sitting over there in the chair on the other side of the camera. That dog just sleeps through the show, which tells you how interesting I could be sometimes.
No. God, did you hear
But
that?
she greets me at the door every Monday. She barks, wags her tail. As soon as we open the door and I start petting her, if she quits barking, still wags the tail. So But if you want to do something, just keep asking people, find somebody that'll help you do it. So that's the moral of the show today. And again, I appreciate everybody joining us every Monday. Hope you enjoy the stories we bring you, and we'll have a good one next week. And I promise you, I'll fill out the guest slots the rest of the year. So, because I'm more entertained when I have somebody to talk to than when I'm on here. So, anyways, signing off from Triangle BNI. We'll see you next week on Triangle BNI.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.